Welcome to the Thrive Talks podcast. We're your hosts, Jamie Smith and Tara Galuska from Thrive Art Studio, where it is our mission to unite female artists. In the Thrive Talks podcast, we share our journeys as artists who want to thrive in our art practices and art businesses. At Thrive, we believe the keys to success are to make art, meet your people, and do the work. For us, part of doing the work is these monthly check-ins with each other to stay inspired, motivated, and accountable. Here at Thrive Studio, we host monthly mastermind meetings with groups of 10 female artists that gather around the Thrive family table. We support each other and help each other stay accountable and motivated in our art businesses and practices. Thrive Mastermind meetings started with just 6 of my artist friends in my studio in July 2015. Little did we know we were starting a movement. All our meetings follow a structure, and this podcast follows the very same one. We are so excited to spill all the juicy gossip and share all of our secrets with you on this podcast. Whether you're also a Thrive Mastermind member, a fellow artist, or just curious about what it is that artists do and talk about, we are excited to invite you to share in our discussions. Well, welcome to episode 4. We are not in the pantry today, and that is because we have a guest.
Who is it? What? What's
Someone
happening?
actually said they'd come hang out with us.
Yes.
We have artist Aimée Henny Brown as our guest. Say hi, Amy.
Hi, Jamie.
So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Amy. We've known Amy now for over a year. More?
A year plus.
Star. And it's been amazing getting to know her as a mastermind member. I'm going to read you her beautiful bio because artists, got to give her cred for what she's done. So Amy was born and raised in Western Canada. Amy completed her undergraduate degree in fine arts at the University of Alberta, focusing on print and book media. After moving to Halifax, Nova Scotia in 2005, she obtained her master's in fine art and media arts at NSCAD University in 2007. Amy's artistic practice engages archives, research, and printed matter to place historical context with her contemporary visual art practice. She has received several awards and grants. She has exhibited her work nationally and internationally. She has completed several art residencies and is currently represented by Vancouver Art Gallery Art Rentals and Sales Program, which we love them over there.
They're fantastic.
And I also just wanted to share Amy's awesome Instagram bio because I think it gives even more of a picture of who Amy is and what she's about. So she's a hunter-gatherer artist who appreciates analog anything. She's a maximalist, shining a light on the power of printed matter. And she has a motto of less hustle, more flow.
Boom.
Working on it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's a life syllabus project.
Yeah, as it always is. So, Amy, what we do at every episode is we kind of look back to the last one and sort of sum up. And so, Tara, I wanted to ask you, how did Creative Mornings go, and how was your consult with the art world unicorn, Penny Lane?
They were both awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah, Creative Mornings was amazing. It was more than I had expected. And Penny Lane was also really, really great. I will be telling you more about these things in our actual answers, so I don't want to give anything away.
I'm ruining it.
I know, you're ruining everything, but I did want to ask how your your month of being a dead weight socially.
Well, ruining it.
How was that?
I love
Doing
hearing
that.
about your strategy.
Right?
By the way. Yeah.
It's working.
It's amazing.
And I had a really funny phone call with a friend of mine who actually welcomed me in to being dead weight because she is self-proclaimed dead weight of our friend group. And so she just called me to tell me, welcome. It's a great shift. She never thought I'd be there. And so she's really excited about it. And so it was a pretty hilarious conversation. So I think I've done well. I've been welcomed into the club by its one member, and me and her, we're going to Victoria this weekend. We're going to do nothing.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's
Good
great.
for you. Good for you.
So we're going to start with question number 1, like we do at every mastermind meeting. Is there something you've been working on that you're really excited about? Tara, what are you excited about?
So I was really excited about this month meeting with Penny Lane Shen. It's now the time to talk about it. It's the appropriate time, so I'm going to share. And it was just great. It was so good to be able to just lay everything out and also just see it for myself, and then talk to Penny Lane about it, get her feedback. And one of the things I really like about talking with Penny Lane is it's just about empowering you to make the right decisions for you, not her just saying, well, do this, do that, do whatever, because I do not respond at all well to that ever in any circumstance. But she just pushes me. Like, she says, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And sometimes she will say, that's really not that important, Tara, or those kinds of things. So it's really nice to just get that feedback from somebody else who I can trust, and I can just be very honest and frank with, and not have to worry about really anything. It's just the time to talk about art, which is really exciting.
Awesome. That's great. Amy, what about you? What have you been working on that you're excited about?
I've been getting ready for 2 exhibitions, which are opening up a week apart from one another. So it's been a crazy summer because I thought it would be the summer of relaxation, and it has not been.
Tricked ya.
Oh, for sure. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, my revelation of there will never be an unbusy time. But it's been really exciting to get ready to share my work somewhere else with a new community in Kamloops. I've never shown there before. So I'm working with an artist friend center there called Arnica, and they are lovely. And then I'll be also, on the flip side of that, a week later after the show opens up at Arnica, I'll be coming back to Vancouver for an exhibition with the Back Gallery Project, and it's a 3-person show there with Janice Wu and Danielle Creasa. So
all Mastermind members.
Yeah, I'm delighted.
Could this be more on brand?
It's
like,
really,
I need to thank
it's nice.
the gallery to be like, thank you.
Yeah, no, we've been working with Monica at Back Gallery Project, and it's been great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congrats.
Thanks.
That's huge.
So Jamie, what about you? You can't escape.
All right. Well, what I'm excited about is that I've made a decision, and I have been wanting to redo my website because I feel like such a fraud, because every meeting I just boss people around and I tell them all the things they should do and all the ways that it could be better, and I don't do any of it. So my website has been this biggest one hanging over my head, and I've organized the photos and it's all there, but my decision is that I'm actually going to pay someone to do it. And I'm excited about that. So I'm going to have a meeting with Penny Lane and kind of go over how I want it to look and to feel. And then I'm actually just going to have her and her partner who does the websites do it for me and pay for it and invest in myself and say goodbye to the self-shaming that is my current website.
I think that's such a solid choice.
I'm really excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, and I just wanted to note for everyone that I went to find my images, and they were actually, yes, they were 4 folders deep on the desktop, but they were all on the desktop in the spot that I thought they were.
So you could find them.
I could, but no one other human could. Like, I had to remember the code I made up to like, oh, this is where they live. So it was a bit of a surprise, but I did find them. They're now in a Dropbox, like safe and sound. It's getting there.
So are you saying then that desktops, file systems are the way to go?
I've always been saying that. I'm just saying that I also might have my own system of chaos.
When I was listening to the episode when you were talking about file management, I used to work in archives, and so for me, Tara, clearly you have a plan and you're confident about your plan, whereas I would liken Jamie's approach to a surfer who is just riding the wave.
Oh yeah, I've never been called a surfer in my life.
You are a document surfer. But yeah, it was tiny flags. They're not red yet, but tiny flags.
They're there. Yeah, I hear ya. All right, share something you learned this month. Tara, what did you learn?
So I learned about compassion because it was my Creative Mornings topic. And so I really had to think about it a lot and what it means to me, and also how I wanted to share what it means to me. So the night before, I had a real aha kind of moment, because in the talk I spoke a lot about how I struggle with self-compassion, and as creatives we need it. That was kind of the theme. And at the end I was thinking about how, it's not something that we just do once and you check it off. And I was also thinking about this idea that, I'm bad at self-compassion. And actually, it's fine to just need to revisit it again and again and again. And that's where the value comes, is from just saying, you know what, like I've gone off the path a little bit. I know what to do. I'm going to get back on track, and that is okay. Which sounds like a very self-compassionate kind of idea and approach to being not good at self-compassion. So I was learning all over the place.
What a good talk.
It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
now
you.
You just have to take your own advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the hard part.
That's the thing. That was the lesson, to just keep going back to it and keep practicing as best I can, and just forgiving myself and moving on.
Oh man, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Amy, what did you learn this month?
I am learning again and again. I think, Tara, it's right in line with what you're saying, is the idea that there is always going to be more work. I had sort of, when the summer began, I had set up this mental image, because I'm taking a break away from teaching for a little bit, which feels fantastic. And I was like, all this time is going to open up, and I'm going to be doing yoga 4 days a week, and I'm going to be riding my bike through the city every day. And then I realized that because I had this open space, I was like, this is the perfect time to move my apartment, and to switch up how I'm running my studio, and to bring on a whole bunch of other tasks that just kind of filled in all of this beautiful imaginary space that I had created. And I think part of the challenge that I'm learning and relearning is that if I don't ask myself what my priorities are, there's always going to be something to fill in that space. And so just really checking in with myself of, okay, like, what's my priority today? What are my priorities this week? What do I need to get done this month? And not to like scare myself out of that idea of prioritizing, but like, okay, what's the year about? Like, instead of just kind of constantly riding the wave of, there's work coming up and I'll say yes to it, or I have space so I need to fill it, because I think that's just how I'm used to operating. Mm-hmm. Is just really figuring out, like, recognizing there's always going to be work.
So you're like a surfer riding the work wave.
I am a pro surfer on the work wave.
Okay.
Yeah. That is the only arena I will ever be a pro surfer in.
And mine is the desktop, so yours is better. No, those are the big things, right? And then we often talk about too at meetings is the difference between an opportunity and a distraction. Totally. And how you prioritize which is which, and then add it to the list or take it off. So Tara's been good. She's been training me to say, like, if we're adding this into the list, what are we taking off of the other list?
Yeah.
And we had to do that. And it was really hard, and she got really bossy. I'm so glad you're here. I can tell you these things.
Side of the coin.
Yeah. Yeah. We had to get really strict because we want to do all of the things.
Oh, for sure.
And be everything to everyone. And we were feeling the weight of that and realized, okay, it's time to look at this. And then I mean, Jamie's great because I will then push her and I'll say, well, so if we do this, we can't do this. And then she'll say, okay, that's right. And it kind of saves me from actually having to ask that to myself. Because if she was to ask me, Tara, this thing, I would want to justify why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows that I do say no.
Oh, she does.
I say
you do.
No, Tara. We are doing this. But Tara does win a lot of the time. Because she's right a lot of the time.
And recognizing in those choices that time is finite. Like that you don't have the opportunity to say yes to everything all the time. Because and I love that you're saying, okay, if we commit to this one thing, it means that something else on the list has to shift or change. And I think especially for women, so often what gets bumped off the list is things like self-care, or things like that involve a lot of what you're talking about too, Tara, the idea of self-compassion.
Yeah.
It's like, I always know the first thing off the list is like, oh, well, I don't have to ride my bike to studio if time is crunchy, or I don't have to go to yoga if I need to make a delivery or drop something off. And it's just like, I'm realizing that is not negotiable anymore.
Yeah, but it feels like it is. Yeah.
Holy smokes, Jamie. These answers are kind of really hitting home for me. Let us know what you've learned this month.
Well, this is a lesson I get to learn time and time again. You know, you'd think at one point it would sink in. I need a clean workspace, and I need a space that is mine. And when I allow people in and don't put boundaries around that and don't take care of the space, I get sad. And usually it happens on like a Wednesday morning where I have a little cry. What's wrong? And the answer is so obvious. Clean your studio, go in there and paint, and get on with it. So I had a nice little morning like that this month, and Tara got to hear all about it and all the things, and then she kind of looked at me and she goes, maybe you should just tidy up over there and see how you feel. Like, fine. And then I did it, and then by the end of the day I was like, this world is amazing. I am an artist. And yeah, so I guess like the cool thing is that I'm an easy fix. But so I need to take care of my space. And I think it's hard because, you know, Thrive was started in my own workspace, so we have a lot of people in there, and I love that. But it is hard to make it my own sometimes. So
For sure.
yeah.
I worked with an instructor who used to say whenever you don't know what you're doing in studio, that's a perfect time to clean. It's cathartic. It lets you look at what you've gathered and think about those things in a kind of subconscious way, rather than like staring at your materials and being like, something magic happened, because it doesn't work that way. I mean,
But
ever.
why?
But why? And so I got into this routine of like, whenever I was either like finishing up a work or putting like final touches on something, or if I was really in a conundrum, what I'll start to do is just like clean up my work area a little bit, sweep the floor. Sweeping is amazing. And I think it's just because it gets our body doing something so that our brain can free up a little bit.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe keeping it like a constant thing instead of just letting it build and build and build until you have a Wednesday morning cry. Which feel great, to be honest.
And I think that's okay too.
They're great.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, I only clean when I cry. It can be like...
Actually, that is so true.
It can maybe be like, oh, like when I'm stuck or when I need to pause, but I still want to feel productive.
And go to studio, right?
Totally.
Because it gets you back there. Yeah.
I've been watering my studio mates' plants in the morning as a way to like just gently get in there.
Nice.
Do a little tour on the studio. I water everybody's plants.
I like that.
None of them die that way.
Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Tara, question 3, what are you inspired by right now?
So I am inspired right now by potentially our #1 podcast fan, actually.
Whoa.
If anyone else wants to fight her for this title, I'm sure you're welcome, but it is my sister, Christy Bennett. She has been so inspiring to me in this last month, because 3 weeks ago she moved countries, and she moved to this country, to Canada, all the way from Australia. And I'm a big sister, so I might cry, because I really am. I'm so proud of her, because she had a whole life set up in Australia going really well. She's very career focused. It kind of runs in the genes. She works in film, and she'd really worked very hard to get to a certain point, but she wanted to push herself and push herself into the Vancouver film industry, and she was ready for a big adventure. And she's in here. She's already been dating. She's got her SIN tax number. She's got a bank account. She's just like doing all of the things, searching for a yoga studio. She's just like going for it. She's embracing it. And it's really cool to see. And it just makes me think of like all the other cool people who are diving into stuff. So as a result of Creative Mornings, I received a number of really heartfelt, beautiful emails, and it just makes me think of like artists. One of them was an artist who has just started calling herself an artist, and how that is a huge leap, just the same as, you know, moving countries or and I'm just inspired by people doing brave, bold things, even when they're not, and especially when they're not comfortable.
Because those brave, bold things, lots more opportunities for Wednesday cries. So you have to be ready, you know? So good for her. That's amazing. And she's fun, so I'm glad she's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to meet her.
Yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy each other, and you can talk about the podcast, and she'll be so excited to meet our first guest. Oh my goodness, can you believe it?
That's amazing.
Amy, what are you inspired by right now?
There are a bunch of little things that I've been really excited about, but I realized that the overarching theme to most of it was really finding a lot of women supporting women. Which is obviously, it fits right into what we're talking about today, but also the idea of studio and work life, having some really interesting moments where I saw how women were supporting other women in focused and particular ways. So I think a couple of the podcasts that I listen to that have really helped me see how this is happening in the larger world. I listen to Call Your Girlfriend on a weekly basis, which is just, I've talked about this in some of our mastermind meetings before. They just did an amazing episode on women's pelvic health, which is something for me, I think is one of the most exciting, important things to be talking about, is that healthy bodies and healthy minds are vast and varied, but that we need to be talking about health as part of how we practice good studio presence. So it's not just about like art and business, it's also about how holistically health fits into that. And I've been listening to Dear Sugars really regularly. Tara, I know you love it.
I just had a very silent reaction to that because I love it so much.
Oh, and it's just hearing how a woman who is a writer, who's had a lot of experience in her life, is hearing, acknowledging, and recognizing the stories of a lot of people writing and who are also women. And just, it makes me feel really excited when I see that, because so much of what we've done in terms of getting to where we are as art and business practitioners has been like, why does this feel so different for me as a woman than it would for, say, my colleagues who are men, who I have a ton of respect for, but the road looks different. And so kind of seeing these moments where people are rallying together because they recognize that the road is different for women. How do we support one another so that it doesn't feel so crunchy? I had a fantastic moment with a colleague this year where they had a school approach them and say, we're looking for an artist to fulfill this position. Do you have anybody that you can recommend? And my colleague recommended me. And so she was able to say, I know this other woman artist who is doing things that you're going to be excited about. And so she was able to really open the door for me in an area where she had far more expertise than I do. And so I'm starting to look for more opportunities like that where I can maybe open doors for other people. On a total side note, I also found a bike shop that operates on this philosophy. Because I found when I try to get my bike repaired or fixed, I go into Brotown, where somebody is going to either make fun of me because I care about how my bike looks, or they're going to be like, you are a bike rider? Because I do not necessarily have a stereotypical bike rider's body. And so there's this really great company called Side Saddle working in Vancouver, and they are so bike positive and female positive. And so I've just been kind of collecting these resources that feel really good. about women supporting women.
I want to go there.
They're awesome. They're so good. And they run a bike club, like a Facebook bike club. So if you're like, I don't know about biking in Vancouver, but I want to go with a gang, a positive gang.
I love positive gangs.
Yeah, positive bike gang.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm jazzed about what they're doing.
That's awesome. Well, mine this month, what I've been inspired by is so similar to everything you're saying. I love that. And found this girl, Nina Wright, and her street artist name is Girl Mob, and she's on Instagram as that, so give her love. And she started Girl Mob Graffiti Camp for girls, and so it's in the US, and basically you can sign up to be a part of this, and it's a teenagers to teach them about how to use spray cans, to do a mural together collaboratively, and just start to get women at a younger age more involved in the street art community. And I really want her to come to Vancouver. So Nina, hey girl, might send you this. Because with the mural fest and stuff, I think it'd be really neat. Yeah. So, and I just admire, that she could just be making art and be doing her own work, and she finds this important and she's doing it. And we know, all of us as teachers and organizers, we know how much work and time that takes. So good on her. Yeah, so it was really inspiring. Awesome. So question 4. Is there a new useful resource you found this month? Tara, what do you have for us?
My new useful resource is swimming in a pool. It's good, right?
It seems very joyful.
It was the best. I got to have some time off, and I took it, and I really dove in. I dove into the time off, and I spent most of it in the pool. I was at Harrison RV Park.
Resort, young lady.
Yes, resort. It was a kind gift from Jamie's mom, Mary Smith. We were able to stay in her glamping camper van, and it was amazing. So Bill and I were there, and all I wanted to do was swim and eat ice cream, and so that is what I did.
Tara, what's your favorite thing to do in the pool?
Well, I have a gift. I have a pool gift, and it is to float. And I'm really good at it.
She is. She sent me a video.
I sent Jamie a video.
She almost floated for too long. Like, I was like, what else happens in this video? And then after I got the text was, look how long I can float for. I was like, you proved that point.
Hey.
Yeah.
There was I'm gonna really brag about this because I'm really proud of my floating abilities. And there were children in the RV park who I asked Bill to time me. I was like, let's see how long I can do this for. And then children were gathering and staring at me and asking their parents, what is that lady doing? It was also kind of like a rainy day, and I was like, I don't care. I'm going in the pool. This is my time this is pool time.
Pool in the rain is awesome.
And so they said, and so the mother was just like, well, she's floating. That's how you float on your back, and she's very good at it. And they were like, wow, that's so cool.
So impressive.
Yes.
They must have been young kids.
They were, but their opinions are no less valid or important.
I'm imagining like a teenager standing there being like, cool, mom.
I think there's something really special about being able to say, I am going to embrace, because you have to let go and simultaneously be very present to float.
Whoa, Amy.
You
just took floating.
Next
That's
level.
Good. That's good.
Amy gets it. Amy gets how important it is. You didn't get it. She did not respond to my text.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't get it. I did not put thought or meaning to it. I was like, why am I not in this pool? Put my phone down. But if I was in the pool,
true.
I would have been flopping around and splashing Tara. So she's probably really happy I wasn't in the pool.
Next time.
Okay, can you say the floating thing again?
Being simultaneously very present and very still. I think that's what I said before.
I like it.
Okay.
Life words. Mm-hmm.
I like it floating too. So I'm meditating and trying. I think that's the I'm just trying and being cool with trying being where we're going with it. We're not getting anywhere with it. And I mean that in the best positive way. But I think about that, like your relationship with floating is a lot like that. It's not like getting anywhere. It's not doing anything. It's not about achieving anything. It's just like, I'm going to be really present and still just be there. I think that's lovely.
No. Okay.
Have I mentally
No, it was
romanticized
great.
this?
Everything you're saying is great. But let's just go back to the story. Where Tara made her husband time her. So she took everything you're saying and then
turned it into a competition.
Yeah, which is why I love you.
Well, I did float outside of timed competition and impressing the local children.
So maybe you have performance floating, and then you have practice floating.
I have floating that's just for me. So if anyone's left listening to the podcast after this,
float on. Amy, what about you? Give us a resource, something that we can really use.
I have something incredibly practical. I have been working with non-permanent glue tape in my collages because I've been making some larger compositions that are, like I said, this is really practical. And what I find difficult is because I like, with some of the larger compositions, they're about 2 feet by 3 feet, to be able to really fuss it. And I let myself go to that place where I worry some of the pieces. But you can't do that if you want to pick it up or turn it upside down. So I've been working with, it's a glue tape that comes in its own dispenser, so you don't have to deal with wet adhesive. It doesn't warp or ripple, which is also a big concern if you're working with printed matter. So that is it's just like, can I say the brand?
yes, please do.
It's just a Staples House brand. So
Awesome.
It's really affordable, but it's also acid free, which as an archivist is really important because you want a pH neutral adhesive. So that's been the gift to studio lately. And then along the lines of pools, I've also been really excited about the sauna at the False Creek Community Center. So I live fairly close to the False Creek Community Center. Their gym memberships are really affordable, and they have a sliding scale that you can work with, which I also really appreciate because who has $500 a month to spend on going to the sauna? And because a lot of people have recommended for me to go, you should go to like the either float houses or trying out the Silent Spa in Whistler, which is great, and they're really amazing resources, but not if you want like a half hour in and out or if you're on a budget. And so for me, I was just like in the women's room, and this is also what I like about it. It's a women's only change room. You get to go sauna. It's a dry sauna. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like it. Floating and saunas. And tape.
And tape.
Yeah. So my resource is we had a meeting and a member was talking about emails and how struggles with only wanting studio time to be studio time and business time. And so we're talking about expectations when people email you and this feeling of like, I need to email them back right away. And so kind of as a group, what we came up with was setting just like auto replies. So having an auto reply set up that says, I check my emails on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to you. If this is an emergency, please call this number, and no one would call. And I thought that was really smart. So starting to using technology and using these things that can drag us down sometimes to our favor. So like, how do we make it work for us? So a few of the ladies are going to try it. So I think it's great advice.
Yeah, I do too. I think auto reply is a gift. It really is.
Because it says, thank you.
Yeah.
But here's how this works.
Yeah.
Here's how we're going to do this.
And you're setting up boundaries so that you don't have to be stuck in that cycle of like, are they going to be mad at me if I don't answer right away? You're setting up a little micro contract and saying, it's going to happen. Just chill out for a minute.
Yeah.
And if you can't chill, there's a resource.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's great. So I was really happy about that. All right, Tara, what are you personally and or professionally proud of this month?
So for me, it was the Creative Mornings Talk. It was a really big deal for me. It was a big deal to share so personally and openly about something that I really care about. And it was just really cool the way that other people also responded to that and connected to it, and it just meant a lot, and I'm really proud of myself for doing it. And
I was there and Aimée was there, so we were both there, and it was lovely. It was really well done. Yeah, good job.
Thanks.
Aimée, what about you, hon? What are you proud of?
Just keeping my head above water.
Oh yeah.
One of the biggest challenges that I think kind of cropped up is that I did all of this planning ahead of time for the summer to supposedly feel quite free. And then life also happened because it didn't get a copy of my magical plan of freedom. What? And so, yeah, just kind of like, rolling with the punches a little bit, which is not something that I am good at. And so also just like loosening up a little bit on some of the expectations, mostly for myself, of like, and at one point I was literally in the middle of moving. We repainted our new apartment. Half of our stuff was there. Half of our stuff was at our old place. And I was like, I am not feeling relaxed at all. And it was just like, what happened to the summer of freedom? And then I was like, this is where things are at right now. So yeah, just trying my best to just kind of take a deep breath.
And one thing in that though, because our last meeting you mentioned all of this, but I think it's amazing that you kept your studio time.
Yeah.
I really liked what you said, because you said that usually when you're an artist or, working freelance of any kind, when life stuff happens, you become the person that does it all. So
Totally.
You do the errands because your partner's at work or whatever it is. And I think it's really great that you and your partner said, no, this is going to be a priority. It's going to be your job. And you kept that. So good on you.
Thanks. It took some training. Like my folks are newly retired, and so they're really excited about being able to call anytime. And they called about a week ago, and we're like, oh, now should be a really good time for a chat at like 2 p.m. in the middle of my studio time. And I've just had to kind of retrain a couple of people as like, this isn't not work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't look like work that is answering to a boss outside of my studio, but just being really firm and kind about the fact that this is work.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah. And I even find myself like, oh, well, go to the dentist at 2:00 because that's the only appointment they have. And, you have to be really disciplined to yourself.
Totally.
And then to, other people as well. But, so good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. So this month for me, I've been really proud that we did our September intake for Mastermind, and it's just been amazing to see the people that have joined our community. Mm-hmm. And we've also started a few more online groups. So it's neat because we have, our in-person groups that meet in Vancouver, and now we have online, and there are women, there's a woman in Paris and Ireland and England.
So great.
Yeah, and it's neat because we're going to learn a lot more of what's happening in different art communities and what people need, and I think that's just going to help each other,
Totally.
And we have our online platform, the network, so that's where members can interact with each other, and just the idea is like, locally, it's always been support each other, and then imagine moving a little bit further, then how can we support each other globally, and that's how change is going to happen. So it's really exciting. So we have 138 Mastermind members. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And 2 years ago, which is crazy, like right now, 2 years ago, the 6 of us met. Mm-hmm. And so 6 to 138.
I can't do that math.
I'm very tired.
Yeah.
I need a good float, huh? All right, Tara, anything you struggled with this month that we can give you advice on? The final question.
Ooh, the good one. Okay, you guys ready? I think you're the right people to come with this one. So as amazing and as wonderful as Creative Mornings was, I really put myself out there. Very happy about it. Would not change one thing that happened. but I did end up with a really strong case of vulnerability hangover.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see how you guys deal with when you have a vulnerability hangover, because it made me think about the fact that I did a talk, and of course, no matter if the topic had been something maybe not as meaningful to me as maybe compassion, if it had just been like, this is the type of glue that I use, not that anyone's going to invite me to do that talk.
I want to hear it.
I mean, I would come. I know.
Too.
Well, okay. Well,
Artists will want to hear that talk.
So there's a few. Okay, guys, stay tuned for my glue talk. But, but just as an artist, like, I live in the vulnerable zone 24/7 with being an artist. I'm making work. I'm trying to put it out there. Instagram posts, that's what we do. We're artists. We have to be. It's my belief that I have to be vulnerable in the world, but I also have to look after myself. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I just want to say thank you too for being vulnerable at the talk. It was really exceptional to witness your courage.
Thank you.
And that is a gift.
Thank you.
So, thank you. One of the challenges I think about giving out all the time is like, when do you get the chance? How do you put things back in the well? Mm-hmm. And I get really, I don't know if this is effective, but I get really protective about time by myself. Because I think it's because as a teacher and an instructor, I always feel like, I could give someone a suggestion that might help them, or they haven't asked me for advice on this, but I can really see an opportunity for growth there. And so if I give myself permission to take more time just on my own, like, really great. For me, it's science fiction. That's not everybody's ball of wax. But like a good book, quiet time, no need or obligation to put out into the world, and like also being really okay of spending like blanket a cat couch time.
Yeah.
That's I know a space where I can start to just kind of, it's healing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I
100%.
think with all of that, like what I was, as you were talking, is having a plan, and taking into account the output, so the input that needs to happen after. And I mean, we talk about this with artists, with, having an art show, which is, you have one coming up. It's like when we build up to these events, so whether a talk or just places that we're putting ourselves out as artists and creatives, it's like having a plan the next day of what feels good. And I always suggest like having like a breakfast plan and like seeing a human and and having a really like comfortable day, because it's so easy to just say, well, then I got to send the follow-up emails, and then I got to, and I should really, send that person that thing. And it's like, no, you get, maybe it's like we should make an equation where if the thing is 2 hours of your time, you get 10 of your own. But it's just having a plan of what is comforting to you. So cat and blanket couch time sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah, it always is.
And also just so I like the rule of 2 hours and then you get 10 hours. But sometimes something could be a really small deal, like from the outside, say starting an Instagram account, right? So some people could say, well, that takes 5 minutes to start an Instagram account. But I feel like that potentially could induce a huge vulnerability hangover. And so adding to that is just checking in and saying, well, how do I feel? Not how am I allowed to feel about this? Because people could really understand. I decided to not work after the talk, even though it was September 1st, the first day of our new intake, and there was a lot I needed to do. And I texted Jamie and said, Jamie, I'm going home to bed. So for that one, it was kind of like she got it, but sometimes it can be hard if it's the like littler ones where other people maybe don't get it, or you can't be as forgiving to yourself. But I think it's equally important. And now I can prepare better for talks and how I can protect myself when I speak as well, by still being vulnerable, but just having a little safe padding for myself, so that maybe the hangover doesn't have to be as much, or I don't feel on the spot. And that was a real gift that the experience taught me, and I will use for my next glue talk, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Those are big topics.
Yeah.
And I think that's great too, to think about, and understanding that everyone has different things that are going to trigger them in different ways and feel more vulnerable. So I love that, is knowing yourself, and it's okay, and you don't have to tell someone that I signed up for Instagram and then had a 3-hour nap because I was so vulnerable. Just do that. And but we just having a plan, and because if you don't, it really leads to a Wednesday cry, which you might need, but as we're supposed to learn from these things, it's putting a plan in place to help yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome. Amy, what about you, hun? Anything this month?
Yeah, I have been feeling, I'm recognizing that this particular move marks moving it almost once every year for the past 18 years, which is half of my life. That's okay. If you did the math, you now know how old I am. Which has led me to feel a little bit unsettled, which I think is reasonable after that many moves. And they're not always out of city, but it is that, like, just gathering your life together and then plunking it in a new space. And so I'm interested in finding out how other people right now make a new or even a temporary place feel like home. So, like, do you have creature comforts that you use? Is there a routine or a ritual that you have that really helps? And I've done this in studios that don't feel quite like mine, like where I've had to kind of just make the space mine, but I'm just curious how you do that for home.
So I lived in Abu Dhabi for a year. I taught school there, and I was in an apartment they gave us, and I knew I was there for a short amount of time and felt very nomadic. And one of the best things I did, which I was one of the few people that did there, is I went and I bought stuff because I didn't have things. I had my suitcase, but the first week went and I got curtains, I got a bed sheet that I wanted, and I set it up. And it felt like an easy thing to just be like, I don't have time, I had a million things to do, and it was the best thing I did. So now whenever I'm in a new place, I hang pictures on the wall. Like, for me, that is the ultimate effort level. Art up on the wall, and I put things in a place. And so I would just take the time to don't even think about how long you're going to be there. Start putting things away and maybe buy a new thing as a treat, as like part of this new home. And maybe that's plants or whatever it is, but it made such a difference because life happened there and it was a tough place to live, and I was my first year of teaching, but I always had my room set up and our living room set up, and I had a home.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I have all of my art in boxes right now. I think that's also what is making me sad.
There we go. That is going to be, it makes a huge difference to do that. I would also add, I know you already have this covered, but cats. Get a cat, get a couple of cats. That just makes home for me. But so for me, I have moved a ton. I was born in Zimbabwe, we moved to Zambia, then we moved to Australia, then we moved, as an adult, I moved to Canada, and this is now my home. And then within that, we moved cities, homes, all of those things. And so I have never had an experience of a home, a house, an apartment, or whatever, feeling like home. I just don't have that. I don't know that I ever will have that. So instead, for me, home is just wherever I am, and And home is with my husband, Bill, and our 2 cats. And so wherever we end up, I'm just like, cool, we're great. And even if those things were to change, if my family dynamic was to change, which I don't anticipate it will, but it could, because life, there's always change. So I just know, well, I'm home because I've always got my back.
Yeah.
But yeah, put the art up on the walls as well. It makes the world of difference.
Yeah.
It really does. And get another cat. Those are my great pieces of advice.
We have a short rule, a short meeting, like we haven't written it down anywhere, but my partner and I are like, as many cats as people. That's the max. So if we were to bring one more cat in, it would be like, oh, we have upset the balance.
Okay, then you need to find another human to move in. Okay.
Yeah, we need a roomie so we can get another cat.
Worth it.
Love it.
Excellent advice, ladies. Thank you.
Art on the walls, baby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this month for me, what I've been feeling is this real transition from summer to fall, and I've noticed that in the meetings we've had, and it's just this, hectic summer where schedules change and life changes, and then the fall, it feels this sort of calmness coming, and calm/craziness, I don't know, but it's routine, maybe a change in that. So I feel like I have some series that are finished now and some work that needs to go on this new website that I'm paying to have done. Very excited. And I'm wondering how you guys transition to a new series. So idea generation. And I have some ideas going, but I don't want to just start something. I want to think through and get a lot of ideas and pick the best one. Mm-hmm. So Amy, I know you're sort of an expert.
I love this topic
I know
much.
you do.
Yeah.
That's why I was so excited you're coming.
We've been so excited.
Yeah, I've been talking with other people. I'm like, maybe we could do like a talk series or something about like why ideas are so exciting.
Yes.
I think one of the things that becomes really important when you're shifting gears in practice is giving yourself permission to explore, because that is work. And so rather than thinking like, oh, I'll rush this period along, or I'll try and kind of I'll give myself 2 days to look at things that might be of interest, is to recognize that the generation of idea and the cultivation of those concepts is just as important as the physical making of the work itself, because this is your foundation. And if you give yourself time for that to be strong, the rest of it is going to be strong as well.
Yeah.
Where do you find your most, where do you feel inspired? Where are you drawing some of your exciting ideas from already?
So for me, it's more based, I look a lot at memory, and so my personal experiences, but also I'm actually interested right now in my family history and my family experience. So I've been looking for artists that are working in ways of exploring their family history. Yeah. Because I'd like to do that in a very structured, respectful way. Yeah. So, but yeah, I've never brought other people into my practice in that way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
One of the things that might be helpful about cultivating this material that you're then going to be using in your art could also be thinking about how you want to record those stories. Because there's a moment when you're dealing with recording the story that technically belongs to someone else. And I totally understand what you're saying when you're wanting to respect and be mindful about the sensitivity of someone's history, about how they remember their past, and that they feel a personal attachment and identity with that story. And how do you then be inspired by and create work from that same place? And I think it can help to have a couple stages of mediation between the rawness of that story that belongs to someone else and how you're interpreting it. And so if we can think about, especially working with history, we're not illustrating history necessarily, but we're being inspired or motivated by it. And so maybe there's a stage where you're listening to a story from someone else, but then you're writing about it from your own perspective. And then maybe from that writing, you're also making your own recording of it, where you're telling a story back to yourself. And maybe there's another stage that you're involved where you're drawing tokens or images or ideas from the story that you've told yourself, so that there's space and time and action that gives you permission to work from a place of inspiration rather than feeling like you have to be directly responsible for portraying that story to its most accurate detail. Because that's where I get stuck too, is inaccuracy and wanting to be mindful with someone else's history. And I think history is it can be so subjective, but it can also be really problematic. Because one person's version of the past can be very different than another person's.
Yeah. No, and I've stayed away from it because I don't even know how to start it.
Yeah.
And so, but it's been on my mind recently. And so this is, when I think of a new series and new ideas, it just keeps coming back. So I was like, all right, I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
So I'm starting with just collecting artists and different ways people are doing these things. So, okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
I think it's important that I don't want to illustrate exactly what you said. I don't want to illustrate someone's history because I'll never get there.
Yeah.
And that's their version of it. And but I want to engage with it, be inspired by it.
And you're not, and I think this has given me a lot of freedom and permission when I've worked with histories, is to say I am not responsible for being a historian or being a journalist or even being an archivist for those stories. It's your job to take that material and to bring it somewhere new and somewhere else. So your job isn't to be super factually accurate or to go into the tiniest detail that is going to lend veracity to that story. That exists already.
Yeah.
Your job is to actually go away from it a little bit.
And take something that exists and reinterpret it.
Yeah, through your lens, through your voice, through your experiences, through the mediums that you want to be using or working with. Another way that sometimes if I'm really uncomfortable with, or I know that there's something really important in the subject matter of what I'm looking at, is to try a new medium. So I don't have my same sort of crutches set up. I don't have the same way that I use tools. But if I try, like I am not a good painter, but there have been moments where I'm like, I'm going to do some painting studies about this because I don't know what I'm doing, and it gives me permission to suck at it too, like to just kind of wander through the not being good at it.
Yeah, because this isn't my medium. Of course I'm not good.
And so you can give yourself permission to totally loosen up with it. And I think that's a way too of kind of getting to the kernel of like, what's the idea about, so that you don't have to get caught up in this idea of like, oh, I have to be historically accurate or factual.
And just, I think, be respectful of their stories, and I want to do that, but
Totally.
You're right, I'm not. It's why I have a cousin who's a writer, and I'm like, write this down, like, do this, but I look at it as an artist, we have a different job in that.
Totally.
So, okay.
And collect. Give yourself permission to really, like, collect a lot before feeling like you need to be whittling it down.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Ooh, I'm excited to get started.
This is exciting.
My wheels are, it's like very quiet because I'm like, tick, 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 tick.
I'm very excited for you.
Yeah. Okay. I love it.
Everything Aimée said, I was thinking all that the whole time, you guys. I had all the right answers.
You are so smart.
I'm so smart, just as smart as Aimée. Yeah, loved that. But I was just thinking about how sometimes when we have something new, we'll go ahead 100 steps to where the problem could be. And so because you are such a caring person and family is like number one to you, so of course your priority is to always be respectful of them. And so that's kind of maybe causing a little bit of a hesitation about the diving in right now. And it's like, well, I got to see what other people are doing. which is great, but also sometimes like I can get caught in that kind of thing. I think you will be 100% respectful. You will cross all of those barriers as they come, and it will be totally fine because that's just who you are and what you're about. So just remember that as you dive in. And also now I know maybe you're feeling like, well, I've said on the podcast, because I know this has just been a kernel of an idea. So you're like, well, now I've said on a podcast that I'm going to do it. Fine if you don't, but it's definitely the thinking about this is going to lead to all of the cool, exciting art that you are going to make.
Yeah. Well, as Aimée said too, it's the work. Like the pre-work is just the same as the work. So it's the idea time and not to rush that. I really like that. So yeah, consider it studio work and time.
Yeah, it's all work.
Yeah. No, it's great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Aimée.
Thank you so much for having me.
Are you happy we didn't make you get in the pantry?
I am delighted to be sitting at the table.
Right? Kind of an ironic moment where Tara and I realized that we probably could have been sitting at this table the whole time.
But you are closer, and you have an experience that you have wandered through together because of the pantry.
We were determined that the sound quality would be better in the pantry. I don't think that's the case, but we'll find out. I think the table is just fine. Well, thank you. We talked about floating, saunas, surfing, glue. Glue keeps coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It's important.
Yeah, Tara's talk.
Upcoming talk. Stay tuned, people.
Stay tuned. Thank you so much for being here with us. If you'd like to email us at info@thriveartstudio.com, or you can find us on Instagram at Thrive Art Studio, and Facebook is the same. We'd love to hear from you.
So Jamie, where can we find you on Instagram?
You can find me at Jamie Smith Studio. And Aimée, where can we find you?
I'm at Aimée Henny Brown.
Awesome. Tara?
At Tara Galuska.
Perfect. We'd like to say a huge thank you to Jo, who has helped us all along the way. She helped this podcast get started. She's now full-time student. Can you hear my heart breaking?
We miss you, Jo.
We miss you, Jo. Big thank you to Ellen, our other intern who works so hard, and we appreciate all her support. And we have a new friend here, Sabrina, who's helping us with the podcast, and a big thank you to her. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, do the work.